So here's what Chris also does. It's called the vibe architecture philosophy, why less preparation actually creates better results for you. This is where most podcasters get it wrong. The standard advice for running a podcast is do tons of research, prepare multiple questions, know the background inside out, come with a structured interview outline. Chris does almost the opposite of that. He does minimal research. He maybe reads 3 bullet points about the guest, maybe a chapter of their book. He doesn't write out every single question. He doesn't prepare for a structured interview outline. Instead, he focuses on one thing mainly, which is creating the right vibe. And this is not to say he doesn't do any preparation. I know he does do a lot of preparation. I'm just comparing the amount he does to other podcasters we've explored on this channel, like Lex Friedman, who can do days worth of research, hefty amounts. And you can choose whatever one you want. It doesn't have to be the minimal version like Joe Rogan or the middle version like Chris, or the super intense version like Lex Friedman. Test different ones out, see which one works for you, and then iterate that process. His philosophy is explicit. I'm not here to interview just to interview you. I'm here to create a vibe, and that vibe is actually the product. Think about why this actually matters, though. When you are over-preparing, you're sending a subtle signal to the guest. You're saying, I'm nervous about this. I need to know exactly what you're going to say. And guests truly pick up on that. Their guard goes up. I mean, when I've done too much preparation, the interview becomes more rigid. I actually get more nervous. Whereas when I do a couple hours of preparation and just know the summary about the guest and then just base my questions off that, I found the conversations have been much, much better and the guest has been much more relaxed. So yeah, the guard definitely goes up. And when you underprepare, not carelessly, but strategically underprepare, you're sending a different signal. I'm confident in this conversation. I trust that we'll find something interesting. I'm relaxed enough that I can listen deeply instead of waiting for my next questions. And the guest responds to that. They relax, they open up, they say things that they wouldn't say in a more formal or structured interview. And this is the vibe architect principle. But how does he actually implement this? Well, he often talks to the guest for 10 to 15 minutes before the interview as they're about to record. And the goal is not to prepare questions, but to establish a rapport, to make the guest feel comfortable, to find a common ground. And whenever I do that on my podcast, we have a nice 5-minute conversation before the episode. It's always so much better, way more conversational, way less rigid. So I highly recommend doing that. And then number 2 is he walks the guest into an interview with an emotional baseline of confidence and enthusiasm. What does that actually mean? Not false enthusiasm, but genuine interest in what the guest has to say. That emotional state is actually contagious. And then number 3 is he prepares the environment, not only the questions. The lighting is professional, the audio is clean, the seat's comfortable, or there's no seat at all, he's standing up. There are no distractions, but he's not just rehearsing the scripts. He's actually creating a nice professional quality which establishes his authority. Number 4 is he genuinely listens instead of waiting to talk. This may seem obvious, but most interviewers are already thinking about the next question while the guest is talking. Chris actually hears what the guest is saying and then spontaneously responds to it. This is a common theme among all the top podcasters. They're not just thinking about the next question they have. They're genuinely just trying to focus on what the guest is saying and waiting to respond spontaneously, or not waiting at all because they're just so focused on what the guest is saying. Number 5 is that he lets guests go where they want to. If an interesting tangent comes up, he follows it instead of bringing it back to the prepared outline. And what is the result of that? The conversations actually feel alive. They feel unrehearsed. They feel like you're listening. It basically feels like you're listening to two people who are genuinely interested in each other and are having a real conversation, right? It's not just a rigid Q&A conversation, traditional interview, where the host is trying to cover as many topics as possible and not let the guest speak. And those conversations always perform better. And that's from my experience as well. I can 100% agree with that. The conversations feel unrehearsed. They feel alive. They feel like you're listening into two people who are genuinely interested in each other having a real conversation. And those conversations perform much better. And this is why the guest quality actually matters so much. If you bring someone interesting on and you're relaxed and listening, the conversation will be interesting as a result. You don't feel the need to manufacture it. You don't feel like you have to create space for it to emerge. So here is the meta principle. We're teaching about vibe creation, right? And the importance of psychological safety. and genuine human connection. But the script in the video is also demonstrating those principles while teaching them. I'm demonstrating those principles right now. You're listening to this not because you're in a perfectly scripted sales pitch. You're listening to this because it's a conversation with someone who's genuinely interested in what you're sharing and what they found out about how Chris Williamson works. That is the vibe architecture principle applied to how I'm delivering this information to you. The best teaching doesn't tell you the principle and then show you something completely unrelated, right? The best teaching embodies the principle whilst teaching it to you. So as you're listening to this breakdown about how Chris created conversations himself, you're also experiencing the same principle in how you're receiving this information. It's self-referential, right? It's a masterclass in applied psychology wrapped inside a breakdown of applied psychology. And that's what separates the best content from the one that gets 0 views. Every element serves multiple purposes simultaneously. So the next strategy Modern Wisdom has used to grow their show is the clip first strategy. And he copied this from Hollywood. Movie studios have been using this for 50 years. You're working on a film, you shoot for weeks, you have the footage, the movie is done, right? But before you release the movie, you release the trailer, you release teaser clips, you release the behind the scenes footage, you build up anticipation. This means the movie doesn't hit the theaters cold, and it hits the theaters with an audience that's already waiting for it. And Chris applies this exact playbook to podcasting and fundamentally changes how his episodes were discovered. Here is the timeline for a Modern Wisdom episode. Day 0, the episode is recorded. Guest comes in, talks for 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. Great conversation, loads of material. And then the next day, editing and clipping begins. The team pulls out the best moments. They identify 2 to 3 standalone segments that work as complete thoughts in themselves, and each one is approximately, I'd say, about 10 minutes long. And these just aren't audio clips, they're actually video clips with subtitles, captions, maybe some B-roll graphics, but they're usually just a 10-minute clip from the podcast. Then the first teaser clip drops. It's the first 10-minute video, and it's the most interesting moment from the conversation, something that creates curiosity about the full episode. And then it will often end with a call to action saying when the episode drops, or Chris will put it on his story, for example, and then subscribe to watch the full episode. And then what happens? Well, if the guest is Naval Ravikant and he has 2.7 million followers, he sees the clip, he thinks it's good, he shares it to his audience, then his millions of followers see the teaser, hundreds of thousands of them click through to Modern Wisdom channel, they see some other episodes and they subscribe. It's that good and that simple. And then a second teaser will drop, and then a third. And what does this actually do? Well, it ensures that there is a positive signal to the YouTube algorithm. This indicates the episode is getting watched immediately by thousands of people, and therefore it deserves distribution because they've seen the 2 previous teasers and are dying to see the full episode. So they get the views on that episode straight away because there's a whole army of people waiting for the full episode to come out. And then let's just compare that to dropping the full episode cold. Maybe a few hundred of your regular subscribers see it on day 1. The algorithm doesn't see it, the same immediate engagement, and therefore the distribution is slower. What is the psychology here? Well, 1, anticipation building. You're creating a narrative arc, and teaser on day 3, teaser on day 6, episode on day 7. People are thinking about the episode almost a week before they can consume it. And 2, multiple entry points. If someone misses the first clip, they might see the second clip. If they miss both, they see the full episode. You're not relying on a single moment of visibility, and therefore have a higher chance of getting more views overall on that one episode. 3 is guest amplification. If the guest obviously shares the clip for their audience for free, that's media coverage that you don't have to pay for, and it's a social proof contract attached to your content. Number 4 is pre-algorithm boost. By the time the full episode drops, the algorithm has already warmed up the strong engagement on the clips. So let me give you a real example. The Naval Ravikant episode. The first clip drops alone and gets, hundreds of thousands of views. Naval then shares it to his social media following, or fans of Naval share it around the community on Twitter, on Reddit, etc. Let's say 5% of those clicked through to Modern Wisdom. That's at least 25,000 new people discovering the channel, and some subscribe. Then the episode drops, and then these 25,000 new members are in the audience immediately. The algorithm sees the strong day one engagement and then it starts recommending the episode. And by the end of the week, the episode has 500,000 views. If Chris had just dropped the full episode on day one without the clips, he might have got like 100,000 views. And the difference between a good episode and a viral episode is that it's the amount of people that begin to watch the first episode. Because if more people watch the episode on the first day it's published, the more the algorithm will boost it as a consequence. And the best way to encourage people to do that is to post the teasers before. And the content is identical, the guest is identical, and the only difference is the distribution strategy. So why isn't everyone doing this? Well, most podcasters don't have the production bandwidth. Clipping takes time, editing takes time, managing the release schedule takes coordination. Chris had to hire video editors specifically to do this. It's not free, it isn't easy, but it's mathematically advantageous once the system is in place. This is the core reason Modern Wisdom's algorithm performance is so much stronger.